Hey, everybody. Welcome to In Case You Wanted to Know. My name's Sean. We have Derek and our good friend, Mr. Jim Henderson, in the house today. How are you, fellas?
Doing good, John.
Enjoying
just
the
fine.
summer and seeing fireflies.
Yeah. What are we talking? Give us a lowdown on what we're going to chat about today, Derek. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah, there's some of our flying critters that we're used to in the summer. Bees and fireflies are having some habitat issues. And we decided that we would do kind of a lighthearted podcast. This is things that Jim loves. He just was telling us about a fishing trip with a fish that was caught up in some wires and bobbers and everything else, and he helped get the fish out. But that's really what this is about. Is sustainability is about your community and the world around you and helping out. And bees and fireflies are having some issues because of some of the choices that we make as humans.
Yeah, well, I love the idea of keeping it lighthearted, but it's some of these things like the decline in bee populations, and now we're hearing about it with the fireflies. It doesn't signal great things for the health of the planet, which is not excellent.
Yeah, I mean, the bee population loses an average of 40% annually of its bee population. And that to me is a big number. And I know, Jim, that's a concern for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime the ecosystem changes, it might seem small, but it's exponential. When you brought this to my attention a few weeks ago, Derek, I think I went online and I was like, holy crap, this is very interesting. And we've had our place in New Hampshire now for 18 years, and I don't remember the last time I saw a firefly outside. Next week I'll be up there. I'm gonna be looking to see if I can see fireflies, because it's about this time of season that you see them.
Derek, you've been back up in the Granite State for a while? Are you seeing fireflies up there?
One area, and it actually is my girlfriend's house. She's right down near the Connecticut River, and because it's wet and there's some marshlands, when you're walking, you'll see down in these little gullies that are wet, fireflies in there. Are they in the neighborhoods? Not very often. And that kind of leads into, when we'll get into this a little bit later on, what can you do for fireflies and for bees, especially with us being in an industry where we're moving folks from one home to the next. And it doesn't matter if you're downsizing or what you're doing, but you can make your next home, a bee and firefly friendly place.
I'm interested in hearing how that works. It is fascinating. I'm not going to put a beehive out by my house, I don't think.
And you don't have to. But let's start with the causes. What do you guys think is the reason why fireflies and bees are seeing a decline? I
would think temperature has something to do with it. They all migrate to somewhere. I think it's there's a trigger, in the season based on temperature and light and darkness. It's sort of like when the birds start heading south, there's something that triggers between the temperature and just the daylight, right?
And one of the causes, and this is unique to the fireflies, is light pollution.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It interrupts their ability to communicate and mate. And part of the reason they can't find each other. And so light pollution is contributing to that. So we did talk about climate change as being one of the reasons. Light pollution is another for fireflies. John, why don't you take a crack? What's the other reason for the decline?
Let's see. We've got loss of biodiversity. The decline of the fireflies contributes to a broader trend of, insect decline. We've talked about the bees. There's others. And the problem is that all these little bugs and insects and creatures, they all play a big part in many different ecosystems, and the loss of any one group can have, big unforeseen ramifications.
So, I mean, I can see it for the bees, but what do fireflies contribute to our ecosystem? I mean, it's like mosquitoes. If they all disappeared tomorrow, I think we'd be happy, but believe it or not, there's a purpose for them. I don't know what it is, and I'll die not knowing, but I just think fireflies are just such a cool novelty when we were kids, but outside of that, I don't know how they affect things.
They do pollination,
really,
not to the extent that bees do, but they are pollinators.
They're probably a food source for some animals, some other insects or birds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are animals, probably birds and whatnot, that eat them.
They are pest controls. They eat pests like snails, slugs, and other insects that are in your gardens. And so that leads to another reason why there's a decline, which is pesticides.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you have, and this hurts, and this is what the number one driver of the decline of bees and fireflies is pesticides and choosing to use them, whether it's the town or yourself. So obviously, one of the things that you can do is not use pesticides in your new home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then there are eco-friendly pesticides. There's ways of not using the chemical things that we are often using to protect ourselves.
Yeah, well, some like eco-friendly products. I mean, you can use cayenne pepper to keep certain ants and things out of your home. And as far as I know, that's not going to do harm to anything.
If they eat that stuff, they'll get indigestion.
That too, yeah, they will. They'll be burping stuff up. I use actually salt, vinegar, and Dawn dish soap to kill weeds, and it works great. I don't know how great Dawn is, but compared to some of the other garbage that's out there, it seems pretty good.
You mean Roundup is? You're saying Roundup isn't something we should be using every day? Probably not. There's any commercials talking about lawsuits against these guys.
Well, apparently they reworked the formula to not cause cancer, but does it?
Well, at least that's what they're saying for the next 10 years.
Yeah. You're right, but does it actually protect the the flying friends that we're talking about? Probably not. It's highly likely. And so I take my chances with that, and it seems to work. And there's plenty of critters, that have been around my habitats. So it seems to be working. Can you guys take a guess what the other really big driver of decline for population is?
I know poor water quality is one of them.
That is one. Yep. But there's one big one.
Well, I had mentioned temperature change, but I don't think that's it. I mean,
parasites. Parasites. Nosemas and mites are also, and there's a rise in those as we have more.
Is that nosemas or noseums?
Noseums. Well, it says nosema on here, but nosema, Nosema, is that right?
That sounds like nosema, yeah.
Right?
Nosemi.
Okay. Yeah.
But noseums, the little ones that drive you nuts.
So these nosemas, are they predator to fireflies? Is that your understanding?
Microsporidian parasites, yes. And they affect bees, and they affect a lot, and they're actually growing, and that seems to be a big problem. And I don't know how you combat that other than maybe using my Dawn dish soap, salt, and vinegar. I don't know.
What they use? Didn't they use Dawn dish soap to like wash off the ducks, birds, and stuff after the oil spill? So it can't be that bad, right?
Right. It can't be that bad. So, we've talked about the causes. And so what can you do in your new home to help these flying buggers around? This
is the part I like. The part I like because I did some reading on this as we try to do and not come into these conversations completely uninformed. But here are some of the things that I found that can help protect the fireflies. Go wild in your yard. Dedicate a portion of your yard or your property to being less manicured. Leave the leaves on the ground. Some of their habitat are they make their home under fallen leaves on the ground. So don't rake all your leaves up. Mow less. Keep your grass a little taller. Plant native plants and provide moisture because fireflies thrive in damp environments. So for me, this is like the greatest news ever because I've got a decent chunk of property here in outside Naples, Florida. And my God, it's woodsy jungle and it is a nightmare to maintain. So to get to use this as a great excuse to not be out there every waking moment mowing and raking stuff up is like some of the best news I've heard this year.
Well, that's such a positive side. On the complete opposite side of this, if a blade of grass in my
That's true.
neighborhood is not exactly where it needs to be, I get a letter in the mail. I got one yesterday that my shrubs needed to be trimmed. Wow. So anything native or anything unkept in some neighborhoods, the fireflies don't stand a chance in our neighborhood for sure.
Yeah, HOAs are pretty big sticklers about that kind of thing.
If you don't have those and you have the luxury of letting your place go wild, I mean, I think that's great.
Well, in case you wanted to know, Jim, there's 2,600 firefly species, and only 150 of them have actually been tracked for conservation. So this is largely unknown. And so one of the things that people don't know is there's a data deficiency on fireflies. How many there are, how many are dying every year, how many species are on the verge of extinction. They just don't know. So there is a number of groups that are out there that are, working on collecting this data to find out. There's a group, a study called the Xerces Society and the International Union of Conservation Nature found that 11% of firefly species nationwide in America are threatened with extinction, and 2% can be considered threatened within the next year. So it is going up. And what can we do in our homes? John, you went down the list, but natural water, natural wood, natural plants, flowering plants. It's all, it's no different than if you were to think about your body as a temple. You're going to eat organic, clean food and try to be healthy. Same thing with your yard. Try to make it a temple for these critters, and it's the best you can do. Do your little part. There's another thing that they do. I found out about up here. That's a growing trend, which is no mow May, which is not mowing for the entire month of May and just letting whatever flowers that are there for the bees to pollinate and for fireflies to have a natural habitat, put out the natural water, whether it's a bird bath or whatever it may be. But that's what folks are doing.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. When you mentioned the water thing, I'm thinking back as a kid going out and catching these poor guys. We always found them in unmown fields where the grass was fairly high. And I always remember the dew. There was always dew on this 2-foot, 3-foot grass.
Well, we were out walking, Heidi and I, with Gimli the other night, and looked down into this gully, and it's wet. It's a swamp down there, and it was dark because there was an overhang of trees, and there just was packed full of fireflies.
So
and
cool.
Occasionally you'd see a few of them, go out into the neighborhood, but for the most part, they were originating in that environment. And it was just cool to look down there and see them, because it just was filled. I'm like, well, there it is. There's the answer right there.
Yeah. It is a bummer to read about this. And I did, again, if you don't know, you don't know. And I did not know that this, there is a declining population. And it's a bummer to me because I remember, growing up in Michigan. And, it was just part of life is seeing all these really neat little glowing lights hovering around everywhere. And the idea that may go away is a real bummer. It kind of makes me sad,
I kind of dug into these insects and whatnot that are disappearing. And I came across the butterfly one too. And I stopped and I thought, I haven't seen the monarchs. My backyard here in Florida in the winter, sometimes it's just completely filled with butterflies doing their thing because they're coming down from up north. And I'd say the last couple of winters, 3 or 4, I don't remember seeing them. And when I looked into it, and again, not the biggest, but it is a concern. Temperature changes their migration patterns. And those migration patterns are very important because that's where they get the food that they need to survive. And if that changes even just a little bit, in their migration pattern, they go to a place that doesn't have the food to sustain them, and they start depopulating themselves.
I've been taking my kids to the Vermont Institute of Natural Science in Quechee, Vermont, and they have bald eagles. They've got different types of owls, and they maintain habitats for all types of critters there for education. And it's interesting you brought up the butterflies because we were walking through, and we couldn't believe how many butterflies there were there when we were walking through. It's all done for a reason. They know exactly what they're doing to create a habitat that's going to thrive. But you're right, Jim. There is certainly not as many butterflies as there used to be when I was a kid. I remember fishing and seeing them all the time and not thinking twice about it.
Well, this is great. Again, if you don't know, you don't know. And hopefully some folks, if anybody, comes across this, can put into use some of the tips about keeping your little slice of the world a hospitable and welcoming place for these fantastic little critters, fireflies, and see if we can all just do a little bit and make a bigger swing as a result.
One of the things that I read that you can do is put downward facing light fixtures in outside, not the big giant bulbs that go like this, but as something that kind of puts it to the ground and consolidates the light, and that helps with light pollution as well as the helps with the fireflies.
Yeah, I found firefly friendly lighting, and their tips were use motion activated lights so that they only come on when needed. Opt for dim, warm colored LED lights, yellow, amber, or red spectrum lighting, because they interfere less with firefly communications. Shield lights so they point downwards and don't spill. Use timers to kill your lights after a certain time.
Right.
Close blinds and curtains. So yeah, there's things that we can do.
Right,
You just
right.
have to change the things that you like a little bit if you care about this.
I think the purpose of our discussions usually are to enlighten people, but to give us something to think about. And again, you're not going to know these things unless somebody says something. And it's hard. I mean, we're really busy in our day-to-day lives. It's hard to take the time to think about what we do and how it impacts society and our environment, because they're very interrelated.
These are all things that, again, in case you wanted to know, it's a consideration. And like you said, Jim, it's up to you to do the right thing. And, the right things are the hardest things to do in life, right? So changing behaviors and patterns is really, really hard. And so some people will and some people won't.
It really is a matter of just being conscious of the effects of our actions. And we talk about sustainability. We talk about it's so much more than just, getting energy efficient of a refrigerator. I mean, those are great. It's so much more than that. There's a reaction to everything that we do. And I think if we do things in the right way, the reaction is positive. When we don't think about it and we just do things without, considering the consequences, how it affects our environment, how it affects our planet, then we're going to get bad results. And we can see that. I mean, I think those are some of the things that have motivated us as a company, but also as individuals, hopefully, to do things and take things seriously about what we can do to make things more positive for our environment and for those around us.
Well, great topic, fun conversation. And on that note, I say we kill it. The chat, not the bugs.
Thanks, John and Derek. That's a interesting topic. I don't think I would have chose birds, bees, and butterflies and fireflies for a topic, but it's very interesting.
Well, they're indicators. They're indicators of the health of the planet, and it's good to be aware of this stuff. Otherwise,
it's an indicator of places on the planet, because there are other places that are largely untouched by humans, and there's a ripple effect, obviously, with weather patterns and the acid rain and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, too much of the planet is touched by humanity, and again, it's up to us to do our little part.
All right. On that note, thank you, gentlemen. Always a good time.
Thanks. All right. Bye.